The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belshazzar.
Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the fourth looks like a son of the gods. Daniel, has your God been able to rescue you from the lions?
My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouth of the lions.
I have the honor to close the series on Daniel, and I really love closing series because when you're closing a series, you can kind of wrap up everything that happened a couple of weeks before. And I think this series on Daniel was an amazing series. From the beginning of this year, we were looking at the life of Daniel and his 3 friends that lived in exile in Babylon, and we see that they were really under pressure in Babylon, but they stayed steadfast and integer, and that's why God gave them a position of influence in the Babylonian Empire. And it's interesting that they took a way that is different to what the world tells us. Usually the world tells us if you want to go far, you probably have to compromise. You probably have to look just for yourself, and then you will climb that ladder, then you would get to this position. But the life of Daniel shows us that if you're faithful to God, He's faithful to you, and He will put you to the place where you belong. And it's amazing to see this in the story of Daniel. And so today we're finishing up this story really with the probably most known story of the whole Old Testament. It's Daniel in the lion's den. You've probably heard the story. It's an amazing story. And you know, the cool thing about this story is now Daniel is 80 years old. So it's not like young Daniel fighting with the lions. It's old Daniel at the end of his life, after over 60 years living in exile, has now in front of him the biggest test ever. And you can think when you're 80, maybe you're thinking about retirement, you know, you don't really need to do crazy things anymore. But in the life of Daniel, now comes the final test. And so we're not, Nebuchadnezzar is not there anymore. Belshazzar is not there anymore. It's not the Babylonian Empire anymore. Now it's the Persians that rule the world. So you see the rulers come and go. Daniel still stands. And I love this in the story that Daniel was working under several rulers. And so now it's the Persian Empire. It's Darius, the king of the Persian. And usually, I mean, maybe you know this from your job, when there's a new CEO coming, everyone is a little bit fighting for their position, you know, because maybe you will be able to get that job. And that's exactly what happens in the story of Daniel. There's a new ruler, there's a new empire, and now there's a fighting between the people who will get the best positions in this kingdom. And Daniel, again, is in the middle of this fight. But listen to this on our last part of our audio drama from the story of Daniel.
It pleased Darius to appoint 120 royal rulers over his entire kingdom. He placed 3 leaders over them. One of the leaders was Daniel. Daniel did a better job than the others, so the king planned to put him in charge of the whole kingdom. So the other men looked for reason to bring charges against Daniel, but they couldn't find any fault with his work. Finally, those men said,
"If we find something, it will have to be in connection with the law of his God."
So they went as a group to the king. They said,
"King Darius, may you live forever. All of the royal leaders have agreed that you should give an order. During the next 30 days, don't let any of your people pray to any god or man except to you. If they do, throw them into the lion's den.
So King Darius put the order in writing. Daniel did just as he had always done before. He went home to his upstairs room. Its windows opened toward Jerusalem. He went to his room 3 times a day to pray. He got down on his knees and gave thanks to his God. Some of the royal officials saw him praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king.
Daniel doesn't pay any attention to you, King Darius. He doesn't obey the order you put in writing. He still prays to his God 3 times a day.
When the king heard that, he did everything he could to save him. But the man insisted. So the king gave the order. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. The king said to him,
You always serve your God faithfully, so may he save you now.
A stone was brought and placed over the opening of the den. The king returned to his palace. He didn't eat anything that night. He didn't ask for anything to be brought to him for his enjoyment, and he couldn't sleep. As soon as the sun began to rise, the king got up. He hurried to the lion's den. When he got near it, he called out to Daniel. His voice was filled with great concern. He said,
Daniel, you serve the living God. You always serve him faithfully. So has he been able to save you from the lions?
My king, may you live forever. My God sent his angel, and his angel shut the mouth of the lions. They haven't hurt me at all. That's because I haven't done anything wrong in God's sight. I never done anything wrong to you either, my king.
The king was filled with joy. He ordered his servants to lift Daniel out of the den. So they did. They didn't see any wounds on him. That's because he had trusted in his God.
What an amazing story. And maybe you realize that here they just cut out the last verse. And the last verse is an important verse, and I will read it to you. Because you know, there's some people, they try to take the miraculous out of the Bible, and so they kind of try to tell us that the actual story of the Bible don't really happen that way. So they say, for instance, oh, you know, the lions in the original language of the Persians, it was not really lions, it was Persian cats. So probably Daniel was just in a den with cats, with kittens, and so he was there the whole night. If you go exactly into the text, you will see that these were not real lions. It was nice little kittens, and so he was with these cats the whole night, and so no wonder that he didn't die. Okay, if you believe this, I'll read you the last verse of the story in Daniel 6:25 to make sure that you know that we are talking about real lions. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children, and before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Talking about Persian kittens. These were lions, and they were hungry. So you know what happened here is real story of God. God working alongside Daniel and rescuing him out of the den. And so the topic of today's message, the official title is How Can I Live Fearlessly? I'll give you the unofficial title for your notes. You can write down the roaring of the lions. So it's not the silence of the lambs, it's the roaring of the lions. And you know, the lion is an animal that you see at many places in the Bible. And I think this animal has some spiritual and symbolic meaning for our life. So for the next couple of minutes, we will explore together the spiritual meaning of lion, of the story of Daniel in the lion's den when it comes to live a fearless life. We finish this series that has a title, Take a Stand. So we're talking about how we can take a stand in today's society for God, the way that Daniel and his friends did under Babylonian and Persian empires. So when I first saw the title of this message, I was thinking about what does this word fearless really mean? Where does this word come from? I love to look behind the meaning of words, and it's a biblical word, and it's also a word that should be interesting to you if you're part of our church, because this word is in our ICF vision statement. If we read our vision statement here on the screens, we read there, as a church, it is our passion to see people become more like Jesus Christ and fearlessly change their world. So we have this word there, fearlessly. And so I was thinking about this word fearlessness, and the synonym to this word is courage. So when we're talking about living a fearless life, we're talking about living a courageous life, to live a life with courage. And the Greek philosopher Aristotle, he said courage is a virtue that is in between two extremes. The one extreme is cowardice, the other extreme is foolishness. So that's Aristotle's definition that I think is a great definition, because it's the active balance between these two extremes, cowardice on one side and foolishness on the other. And what is inseparable with this word courage is the word fear. Because to live a fearless life doesn't mean that you live a life without fear. It doesn't mean that there's no fear in our heart. I think fear plays a central part if you live a courageous life. Courageous or fearless means that you are acting in spite of fear. That you learn to overcome fear, that you stretch the boundaries of fear that wants to hold you back. And courageous people are people who have learned to overcome their fear. I have a sentence from Reinhold Messner. Maybe you know this guy. He's like a legend mountain climber. He was the first guy who went up to Mount Everest without a bottle of, not vodka, but of oxygen. Maybe he had a bottle of vodka, but he didn't have the bottle of oxygen. So he got up there just without help. And he says the following: the image of a fearless hero is deceiving. And when he says that, it's because he takes the notion of fear. You know, fearless doesn't mean without fear. It's a make-believe. A hero who has no fears needs no courage. Fear is a constant companion. Without fear, no person living at the limits will live long. Fear is the other half of courage. And I think this is an important statement to start with, to understand fear is not something bad. I mean, I think fear is something that protects you from doing dumb things, to do foolish things. But you know, if the fear is going too much on that side, then nothing will happen in your life. And I think the interesting thing about this word is, if you go to the root of this word courage, and you go into the French, it's the same word. You just say it differently. It's courage. And the root of this word is cœur. It means heart. So at the root of courage is an inner conviction. You know, courage is never a head thing. It's always a heart thing. So courage means that you have inner convictions in your heart that make you act or talk in in spite of fear. Even though the outcome of what you will do is very unsure, you will still do it because your heart, your inner conviction pulls you towards this decision. So this is what we talk about when we talk about living a courageous life. So you know, the courageous people, they know fear. They know fear. It's interesting, this week in Switzerland there was a survey that was released, maybe you've read about that in the media. It's a big insurance company who asked Swiss people what they think fear is. And number one response of the Swiss people is, courage means overcoming fear. And they asked the people, who are the most courageous people in the world? And so in this survey, number one is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela didn't do a bungee jump. What he did is he lived his convictions to a place where he spent half of his life in prison. But still, because he had this inner conviction, he did these courageous decisions that brought him, that brought him into prison. But he is a courageous guy who lived according to what he believed was right. And this is inspiring. Today I invite someone on stage that is for me the most courageous person I know. I mean, I know Nelson Mandela, but this person I know since 25 years, it's my wife. Tabea, give her a hand. My beautiful wife, Tabea. When I met her 25 years ago, she was 15. And what's fascinated me about her from the first moment is that she's a courageous woman because she has strong conviction and she's acting upon these convictions. And so because of this, over the last couple of years, she helped catch 2 robbers. And so Tabea, tell us what happened that one night where you caught that robber.
So I'm a night person. I love the nights. So it was like a very cold spring night, and I was still awake. And suddenly I heard, I have to say, in my flat it was dark. My family was in bed, everyone sleeping. So I heard someone coughing outside. And I thought, interesting. Because normally when someone came home, the lights went on all around the house. So I was looking outside through the window and I thought, there is no lights, so something wrong. And I started observing the area, and then I saw in the neighborhood garden, there is a little garden shed. I saw a phone call light. And I thought, my neighbors never go at 2 o'clock in the morning to the shed, and they were in the holidays anyway. So I was like, this is going to be interesting. So I went one level up to observe it better. So I saw this person grabbing a lot of stuff and climbing over a fence where 2 meters over here, there was a door. So I was like, okay, this person is surely not from here. So I called the police. I was like, okay, it's going to be very exciting. So I called them and I said, there is a person that doesn't belong to this place. And they said, okay, how do we catch that person? And then we agreed to a secret place outside where we could meet.
So wait a minute, so it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you have police people who tell you to go outside all alone. Why didn't you wake me up and take me with you?
I have put black clothes on so no one would see me. And then I came to you and I said, Nick, there is a robber outside. I'm going to go outside. And you said, that's all right.
Yeah, to my defense, from this moment, I was doing a spiritual warfare, sleeping. That's something that I'm really good at. I'm sleeping, but I'm praying at the same time. So she went with my blessing.
Blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
So what happened afterwards?
So as I had the door handle in my hand, I thought, oh my goodness, what if he has some friends? And they are all around my house and I don't know. So I had fear at that moment. But then I had this passion of righteousness because I knew something is wrong out there. And I had the passion of adventure. I was like, oh, this is going to be so exciting. So I went anyway. And long story short, we followed the the robber's way. We observed everything. Maybe he was hiding some stuff, and then we caught him in the act. And it was a very high adrenaline moment, but it was so cool. And then the policeman who came with me, he high-fived me and he said, "Well done, Miss Legler, because normally we're going to be too late for moments like that." And that was cool.
Amazing. Let's give her a hand. So, you know, we don't need a dog at home. We don't need an alarm. I sleep well every night, tired, and, you know, like, I know I'm cared for. My wife, she's catching the robbers. So you saw her inner conviction, this passion for righteousness that made her move in spite of fear. Because, I mean, it was quite foolish, maybe you think, to go out like a woman. I mean, you have seen her muscles, but still, to go outside in the night, all alone, not knowing what really happens there. But her passion for righteousness made her move anyway. That's the thing. That's the thing when we talk about courageous lives. The roaring of the lions. Do you know why lions roar? Lions are animals who can roar up to 114 decibels. Let's try this out. You know, when lions roar, they are marking their territory. That's what lions are doing. When a lion's pack is in a territory, you have the male lions who are defending the territory. They are doing this through roaring. So they're telling the other lions, "Hey, I'm the boss in here, and you better not come into my territory because this is mine." And so what the lion does when he roars, he wants to fear other lions and to tell them, "Hey, I'm stronger than you." And it's interesting that in the Bible, the devil is pictured like a roaring lion. Because that's exactly what the lion does. The lion is a specialist in the fear business. That's what the lion does, but what the devil does. He wants to fear you to move into God's territory. That's exactly what he wants to do. So he doesn't want you to live a courageous life, to take a stand for God. So he will put fear into your life and he will roar at you so that you're backing down and you're paralyzed to move into the things of God. We read that in 1 Peter 5:8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And do you know why the devil is roaring at you when you're taking a stand for Jesus? It's because when you're with Jesus, when you belong to him, you're part of a different lion's pack. It's the Lion of Judah. You know, Jesus in the Bible is the Lion of Judah, and he is the top lion. And so if you're taking a stand for him and you'll go into the devil's territory, that's something that he hates. He hates when you're taking land, when you're advancing the kingdom of God. So the thing that the devil will do, each time you will stand up at your workplace, in your family, in your school, whenever God has placed you, and you know that now it's the time to take a courageous step, to maybe testify, to pray for someone, or maybe there's something in your company that is not right and you feel that you need now to say something. What does the devil do? He will put fear in your life. Fear of rejection. The fear for your career. You know, all these things, fear for your reputation. The fear of people. Existential fear, fear of failure. You know, all these different things that when you're moving into the things of God, the devil will try to keep you out of what he says is his. And the interesting thing is, you know, like when the devil fall out of heaven, the thing was, he didn't accept God's authority. So he wanted to be the boss in heaven. And then God put him out of heaven. And from that moment on, he is the one who is always fighting against the things of God. But what started? It started with this roar of the devil against God, who said, hey, I'm the boss. And God said, no, I'm the Lion of Judah. And this is my territory. And still the devil will try to keep us back from the things of God. And you know, that's why I think this series is so significant, because I think to take a stand means that we need courage. And we need to learn to overcome fear, because that's the devil's business. And I think that fear has nothing to do with our life when we're in Jesus. We need to realize that the one who is in us is stronger than the one that is in the world. And you know, a couple of weeks ago, I had a story happening in my workplace, and my workplace is this church. I'm the CEO of this church. I'm looking after the finances. I'm also looking after the whole media thing. And so a couple of weeks ago, we had a lunch discussion about Bitcoin and all that stuff. And because there's some guys in our church who are working with this Bitcoin crypto thing, we thought, why not open a Bitcoin account in our church so people can actually donate in crypto currency. Maybe you know about this. It's been in the media for all these last couple of months, and I'm not talking about if it's good or bad. I know I have my view on these things, but we were thinking, you know, one of our values is we are a church at the heartbeat of time. So we don't want to be the church who is taking over new things after everyone else has already played the game. So we want to be upfront on things. So I was thinking, why not be the first church who can actually accept donations in crypto? Bitcoin, Ripple, or all these different currencies. And then I said, okay, if we do this, I will release a press release or a media release, and I want everyone to know about it, because at least everyone will know. And so we got the things ready, and I wrote this press release. And then the night before we decided that we would start that, I had such a bad sleep, and really I was thinking about, maybe this is not a good thing. I mean, maybe we're waking up sleeping dogs, we say in German. Maybe you don't know this. But, you know, we're bringing up some topic that is maybe not necessary, so people can just shoot at us and tell us about, because they don't like the church and finances, always scandals everywhere. So I was laying there in bed and think, I think we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should just sneak that in, on our website and don't tell anyone, and we just do this, and if someone wants to give, they can. So I had really fear in me, and I felt really a pressure to erase this press release and just don't do it. But then the other morning, in my prayer time, I just had a feeling, let's do it. I mean, we decided on that, and I believe that this is a step that we should do as a church. So we did that. We released this donation on our website, and I released the press release. And maybe you have seen that we'd never had that much international press coverage all over the world. I have different things here coming. So we had in Italy, in Germany, in Switzerland, of course, everywhere. In Russia, I don't know where, everyone. Ach du heiliger Bitcoin. And you see, in Italy, La Chiesa di Padre Nicolas Legler. Padre. So you can call me Padre. From now on, you can call me Padre Legler. So they wrote about that in Italy, and all different, maybe you can show the other ones. And the amazing thing was, it's the last one you will see, Newsweek USA wrote about it. I mean, how crazy is that? So everyone was writing about it because it went on these crypto blogs and it went around the world and everyone copied the same article, of course, but everyone was writing about it. And this was a cool story. But the real cool story is not that one, is what happened afterwards. A week later, on a Thursday night, I got an SMS from Leo and he told me, did you hear about the Bitcoin miracle? And I thought, what kind of miracle is he talking about? And now the story went like this. On a Thursday night, suddenly there were 3 Chinese people standing in front of the Samsung Hall. And so one of our guys, because it was Team Night United, everyone was there, walked past them and asked them, are you looking for something? Because they were kind of lost there. And they said, yeah, we are looking for a church. But we can't find a church because a church doesn't look like this. And so Simon was there, explained them, yes, this is a church, it's Samsung Hall, ICF Zurich. And they said, yeah, we found a church. Now, you need to hear this story. These 3 guys were crypto specialists from China, and they were at the World Economic Forum in Davos. They read about it in the Newsweek article. They booked a taxi, came down from Davos to Zurich to find this church. Not Christian. They were not Christian. They were crypto specialists, like quite high guys, invited at the World Economic Forum. And because all our people were here, I have some pictures. They showed them around, they showed them the hall, they showed them the vision video. They were amazed that actually there was a church that was meeting in a building like this with this technology, and that they would have Bitcoin and crypto and that. And they made a donation. All right, the donation, 5 minutes ago, it was still a bit more than maybe in a minute. You know what I mean? You know, it's not about what they donated. But it was amazing to see how you can have influence into spheres that you've never thought about. Like how can we reach these people? But, the fear of failure or the fear of whatever could happen almost stopped the whole thing. And for me, this was just one story, and maybe you have other stories in your life where you feel inside, there's something inside of you says, you have to do this. You have to talk to this person. You have to pray with this person. You have to make this move in your life or to make this move in your business. And there's something in you that stops you, this fear that holds you back. God wants us to live courageous lives, to overcome fear. And when you look at the story of Daniel and the lion's den, I think that night in the den, there was another lion in there. I think the Lion of Judah was in the den with Daniel. Like the angel of the Lord was with the 3 friends in the furnace, I think the Lion of Judah, who is the leader of the pack, was there, and he told the other lions not to touch Daniel. Because what we need to realize, and that's also not a head thing, it's a heart thing, that the lion who lives in us has the stronger roar than the lion that lives in the world. And that's something that we need to take in our heart when we face these situations. We read in Revelation 5:5, then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. And I think it's important that we note here it's has triumphed and not will triumph. Sometimes I think we go through life looking at the end of times and we think, okay, at the end, God will win. But until then, it's kind of, a fight, and at the end, God finally will win. But the truth is, He has won already. When God died on the cross and was resurrected, He took the teeth out of Satan's mouth. So what Satan can do now, when you're in Jesus, he can scare you. He can roar at you, but he can't devour you. Because the death has been overcome through Jesus. And when we're in Jesus, the more we're in Jesus, the more we will not do the works of the flesh, but we will do the works of the Spirit. And you know what that means? If you're not doing works of the flesh, you're not so attractive for lions, because lions are no vegetarians. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. You know, at the end of this series, I want us to understand that the one who lives in us is stronger than the one who wants to put fear into our life. And so many times we hold back because we hear this lion roar. But we need to remember that the Lion of Judah, he's with us the same way that he was with Daniel that night in the lion's den. And he helped him out of this situation. And so at the closing of this series, I want us to do something, and we're going into our #Jesus series from next Sunday on, where we're going this 40-day series towards Easter, where we're celebrating the death and resurrection of Jesus. And this #Jesus is really a continuation of this Take a Stand, because we want to make the name of Jesus big in our world. And I think one thing that is important is that we learn to overcome fear so that we can take a stand for God in our lives.
Sometimes I wonder, when everything fails and fades away, what does remain?
Why do we come to this place from near and far? Because at the end of the day, there is nothing else that remains.
What would it look like to face the consequences of something so radical? What would it actually look like to follow Jesus?
Friendships may fail, heroes may fail, eventually riches turn worthless.
He stirs a thirst for truth, compassion, and love. Nothing that this earth could ever quench.
What is it that we can truly build our lives and hope on? There is one thing and one thing only when it's all said and done. He alone is our solid rock, our center, and our foundation.